This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about this.
And look, Aaron, those aren't the only times that we found that he used it. He also used it a lot on social media. Look at a few of these right here. You see there, that is a lot of use of Latinx by him for somebody who said that nobody in his office has ever used that phrase.
I never thought I'd see the day Gavin Newsom actually let the truth slip out of his mouth. If you've been following along here, you know we've torn apart his lies more times than we can count. Think back to the garbage he spewed about the California wildfires. Yeah, that disaster of a claim. Well, now comes the plot twist nobody expected. A clip is making the rounds, and in it, Newsom finally admits the truth. First time ever. Hard to believe, right? Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's break it all down together.
John Fetterman was in the news today. He said, talking about the Democratic Party, he said, if we don't get our shit together, we're going to be a permanent minority.
I agree.
And I see you're doing something about it. I applaud it. I think it's great. You've got this podcast. You're talking to people. You know, it's amazing to me that even that is controversial to some people. They call it platforming. If you talk to someone you don't agree with.
Yeah.
I feel like this country is divided into owners and healers. People who think you can own the other side.
Even Bill Maher looked caught off guard when Newsom dropped his little truth bomb. You could see him hesitate for a moment, like he was processing what he just heard. Nobody sat down expecting honesty from California's slick-haired governor. We were all geared up for the same old routine of excuses, finger-pointing, and political spin. Instead, Maher flat out said, the Democratic Party is teetering on the verge of collapse, and Newsom didn't dance around it. He actually admitted the party's in real trouble. For a man who's built his entire career on sugarcoating disasters, that sounded almost like a courtroom confession. And it didn't stop there. He nodded along to more uncomfortable truths, choosing agreement over his usual script of dodging and lecturing. That's the moment you realize something bigger is shifting, because when the master of denial suddenly starts conceding, the cracks in the facade aren't just forming, they're widening.
Gavin Newsom owned DeSantis.
Yeah.
DeSantis destroyed Gavin Newsom. Or people who want to talk and heal. And I feel like the next president is going to be, at least if it comes from this party, the Democratic Party, someone who wants to talk and heal. And I feel like we're doing it.
Honestly, there's no way Gavin Newsom's shiny new podcast is about honest conversation or healing. Let's be real. This isn't therapy hour, it's politics. What it looks like is a carefully crafted audition tape for the role he's been chasing all along, the presidency in 2028. He knows the California record is ugly, homelessness exploding, businesses packing up, wildfires raging, rolling blackouts, the list goes on. So now he's trying to rebrand. The slick, over-polished operator wants to swap that image for a softer mask, the Democratic healer, who pretends he's going to unify a fractured nation. Every word feels rehearsed, every gesture calculated. It's less about mending divisions and more about polishing his resume for the next stage. To me, that doesn't read as sincerity, it screams hypocrisy. The question is, who's actually buying Gavin Newsom as America's therapist-in-chief?
It's really been interesting, the reaction to the podcast. I mean, we had some controversial figures on, I'll acknowledge that, and Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and some others. But you're right. I mean, this idea that we can't even have a conversation with the other side.
You have to. They won.
Thank you. That's it, the bottom line. And by the way, or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now.
Wait, did Gavin Newsom really just admit the Democratic Party is toxic? Because that's exactly how it came across. And honestly, it's shocking to hear it from the man himself, with every strand of hair locked in place. The irony is almost too much. The party's unappealing state isn't some random accident. It's the product of leaders like Newsom, the ones who chase the cameras, rehearse the speeches, and flood every stage with virtue signaling while real problems spiral out of control. California under his leadership is the perfect exhibit. Homelessness unchecked, businesses bailing, crime climbing, and a quality of life in freefall. Yet now, here he is, pointing to the decay in his own party like he just discovered it. That's the political equivalent of the arsonist wandering back to the scene and muttering, "Wow, sure looks like this place burned down." If he's suddenly interested in exposing toxicity, the first place he ought to examine is his own reflection.
We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground and not take cheap shots. I'm not looking to put a spoke in the wheel of their, or at least a crowbar in the spokes of their wheel to trip them up, to your point. And I think it's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be.
You can't miss the way Gavin Newsom keeps slipping his podcast into the conversation like it's some casual mention. That's pure Gavin, slick, calculated, and always selling. It's a perfect snapshot of who he really is, the model modern Democrat. Heavy on words, light on results. He'll circle around an issue, drown you in polished soundbites, and when it's all said and done, nothing's actually different. And then came that little moment, a subtle jab that sure sounded like it was aimed at Kamala Harris. If there's anyone who's mastered the art of talking endlessly without ever landing a point, it's her. She can take a single thought and spin it into a maze of words that somehow still add up to nothing. Maybe Gavin was being sly. Maybe it slipped out without him meaning to. But either way, it showed something real. Even the Democrats' own golden faces are starting to chip away at each other.
This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about this.
If Gavin Newsom suddenly wants to play the accountability card, then the first stop has to be his own backyard. You can't hit national TV, pin the Democrats' 2024 loss on the party, and then lecture everyone else about responsibility while acting like your own record is untouchable. That's the definition of hypocrisy. California, under his leadership, hasn't been a model state, it's been a warning sign. Exploding homelessness, businesses packing up and leaving, suffocating taxes, rising crime, and a cost of living so brutal that families are fleeing like it's a mass evacuation. If he's serious about Democrats owning up, then he should start with himself. Because he hasn't just been a bystander to California's collapse, he's been the architect. Until he admits that, every word he utters about accountability is just scripted theater. And it doesn't stop at California. He's also tied to the national mess, like when he tried to rewrite history by denying he ever used the term latinx. That's not leadership, it's deception. And watching him now, it's clear. The chaos at home and the implosion of his party share the same fingerprints.
Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
Now you get why it was so jarring to hear Gavin Newsom let even a scrap of truth slip out. This is a guy who's made a career out of spin, denial, and distraction. We're conditioned to expect nothing but carefully packaged lies. That's the Newsom routine. Deny what's obvious, deflect blame, and distract with polished rhetoric. Meanwhile, Californians have lived the fallout firsthand. Homelessness spirals, businesses close up shop, crime ticks higher, and families keep packing their bags for anywhere but California. And yet, he never drops the smile. On camera, it's always the same glossy performance, as if everything's thriving while reality rots behind him. That's why hearing him admit even a fraction of truth felt so bizarre, like stumbling across a unicorn in the middle of San Francisco. But let's not mistake that for growth. Newsom isn't suddenly a leader. He's still the same scam artist in a tailored suit, peddling illusions while the foundation collapses. And on top of that, his denial about ever using latinx doesn't hold up. Dig a little, and you'll find it wasn't the only time that word left his lips.
And look, Aaron, those aren't the only times that we found that he used it. He also used it a lot on social media. Look at a few of these right here. You see there, that is a lot of use of Latinx by him for somebody who said that nobody in his office has ever used that phrase.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state.